Hi, Paul. My name's Alex, and I'm a fan of yours on YouTube. You've kind of, what's not to like about you, really? You're smart, you're funny, and you're British, and that's the trifecta for me. But anyway, enough about you. You probably want to know why I'm making a video instead of just writing in the comments like you asked. Because I have a few too many thoughts to put down in one comment, I think. And I think you'll be keen on some of them, actually. See, I've been pondering this astrology thing for a very long time myself. I've even been a firm believer in it at one point, but that was a while ago, and things have changed. But I have never given up on it because I've always had a gut feeling about it. I've always felt that people used the stars to chart everything once. That's all we had. We had no instrumentation, no given directions. We had no agreed upon coordinates of anything. All we had was what was in the sky and what was on the earth. And at night, when you can't see the earth, what do you got? So time and tides and everything in the world was determined by these stars. But now we know that these stars are so far away, so distant. What effect could they possibly have on much of anything? We don't really know. They could, but what's more likely? This is my hunch. What's more likely? Honestly, I feel like astrology shouldn't be called astrology. I think it should be called tarology. Because I think, my guess, for which I have no scientific proof of whatsoever, probably never will, but it's just fun to guess at, like you said. My guess is it has everything to do with the Earth's electromagnetic frequencies. We're each coded, not just at birth, but as we develop in the womb. Certain things that aren't present in a sperm, like a brain, have to develop in a certain way in the womb. And we know that many different things can affect that development. But we don't understand everything yet. We acknowledge there's a great mystery in the universe and the fabric of space and time itself that we would love to crack. If we could, we'd be able to, travel at light speed and such. But with what we know now, we have no proof of any other effects. But we know some things. We know that the world it revolves. We know that the seasons have cycles because of that revolution. What affects beyond just temperature, humidity, do you suppose those seasons might have on, say, a developing brain? Different solar radiation levels, different fluctuations in the very field and frequency of the planet. They wouldn't be random. After how many years, how many billions and billions of years on this planet spinning around, nothing is that randomized anymore. It's all settled into a pattern. Now, it's either speeding up or slowing down something, but it has its cycles, it has its patterns. So, perhaps we do too. Perhaps we fit in to that seasonal pattern. Because we're the only species, if you think about it, that breeds year-round. Every other species has a season, a breeding cycle, a breeding season, a mating season, a birthing season. They follow it every year, and that's what they do. We're just crazy fuck monkeys. We're just all over, and so we're born all throughout the year. So our seasons are all the seasons, all the portions of the seasons. Now we take astrology and we measure it by the year, and the year that you're born in. I think it would have more to do with the year you're conceived, the year you're gestated, primarily. Having nothing to do necessarily with birth except that you come out of the womb. But I think perhaps these effects, whatever they are, they're not nearly as specific, and that's why we see errors through all the astrology protocols, because they're either based on a birth or they're basically trying to tie together disparate people that shouldn't be, because we don't understand the real correlation. So you get weird things like from your book that don't even make sense because they don't go together, or they're so vague that it could apply to anybody. They could apply to my they could apply to the dog next door, I think. I don't know. But some things are spot on, and you're right about that, and that's what has always kept me going. You know what else is interesting? Palmistry, and I don't know if you've ever checked it out, but again, it's one of those things. It's one of those things that I can easily dismiss 99.9% of the myth surrounding the claims of how it works. Now, if that's how it worked, we would have tested it, we would have proven it, right? I mean, it's been around long enough. Science has been around long enough. We've had ample time to test many different superstitions, and they always fall short. Probably because we're trying to answer the wrong questions. We're disproving the myths, that's good, but we're not going to prove the truth until we understand the nature of matter and the universe more, I think. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just being optimistic here. Maybe it's so much more of just a psychological trickery that, confirmation bias is really, it could just be that. It could all just be that. A stop clock is right twice a day. That's what they say. So, if that's the case, so be it. But, if ancient wisdom is based on a kernel of truth, and I'll accept that, man. I will accept a kernel of truth behind every myth out there. Take the Oracle of Pythia, for example. That's a brilliant one for you. Oracle of Pythia, does that word sound familiar? It's actually Greek, pythos, meaning, guess what? Serpent. That's what we got the python from. But pythos wasn't just any serpent. Pythos was the king granddaddy serpent. Biggest snake on the fucking planet. And when he was alive. Well, Pythos in the mythology was slain by the Son of God character. Sounds a little like Genesis, saying that your descendant will crush the head of the serpent kind of myth, right? There you go. Pythos, the original. Well, Pythos was said to have died in his underground lair, which was in Greece, And his decomposing body was said to be releasing these fumes, these methane fumes out of the earth. Now, you think, well, how would the Greeks have come up with a story like a giant snake underground whose vapors are causing hallucinations that are visions from God? Well, because they smelled it, for one. Or they saw the effects of it, I guess. And they knew what a rotting animal corpse was like, and they compared that to the smells in the earth. And they said, well, that's it. That must be where the giant snake's buried, because it's always leaching out these vapors. Kind of clever if you think about it. I mean, they were going with all they had at the time. They had no knowledge of geology below the surface, so they were doing pretty good with what they had. Scientific observation and such. They just tied it to a myth. Now, where that myth came from, that's the curious part. But that was a kernel of truth. The kernel of truth was there was methane gas coming out of the ground. They called it. They had the wrong reason for it, but everything has a nugget somewhere, a seed, before it all went south, is my point. It's all based on some pattern that we as humans can't ignore. The explanation may be worlds off. Like I said, astrology could all just be confirmation bias. It's possible. But that's the kernel of truth. If that's what it is, that's it. That's the thread. But it could be something else. It could always be that mystery. And it's for me, as a humanist, as an atheist, I feel like it's an obligation, almost, to hold on to that mystery, to treasure the mystery, to never settle for the absolute answer, you know? Because what's that good for? What does that teach anybody to say, I know for sure that it's not this, or that it is this, or thus and so, or that? Unless you have absolute proof, a gut feeling ain't good enough. But it's enough for speculation. It's enough to suppose. Just supposition's fun sometimes. Especially when it keeps coming back around. And that's the interesting one for me, my friend. It keeps coming back around. So, I've talked long enough. And when you cross-reference Gemini water pig in Western astrology, fairly certain you're going to go, hey, that's kind of funny. So, yeah. I think that's about all I got, and I'm running very long on this one, but just wanted to respond and shoot you my thoughts on the whole shebang. Thanks again for doing your videos. I love it. Keep it up. Peace.